The very, very charming Mitch Cook. Thank you so very much for the wonderful rap. I think it's quite clear from the comments that he made that there's a lot of ambition that is being followed up by a lot of hard work, a lot of commitment in terms of resources, but also a certainty about where it is that the kingdom is trying to go. And a good sense, I think, of where it's trying to position itself in terms of the global industry. So, we've come to that part of this event. That's pretty much the end. And you can see I'm going to be joined by a number of people. And what I'm hoping we're going to be able to do with this next conversation is to say, if we understand where it is we're trying to get to, what are the things specifically that we want to make sure we do to make that a reality? So, let me call them up one at a time. Please put your hands together for His Excellency Khalid Al Mudaifir, the Vice Minister for Mining Affairs in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Dr. Saeed Al Shikri, Vice President for Energy and the Industry Sector, King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology. Emily Bedoin, Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Pure Lithium. Florence Drummond, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Indigenous Women in Mining and Resources. Christine Gibbs-Stewart, the Chief Executive Officer of Ostmine. Chris Maybury, the Deputy Chair of Bermuda Commercial Bank. Don Sodaway, Professor of the Department of Material Science and Engineering at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Whew. That was a mouthful. Okay, I got there in the end. Okay, we've got 30 minutes for this conversation. And I think, when I was preparing to come here, I thought this is a really big ask. It's a lot, there's a lot happening. Over the last 2 days, I've realized that it's probably bigger than I thought it was. We're trying to do an enormous amount in a really short period of time. We have to make sure that not only is it about commitment, but resources are available. There are the people to deliver, there is the money, there is all of this. So, to each of you, starting with you, Your Excellency, of course, the question is, if we know this big thing that we're trying to achieve, and we've got such a short period of time to try to get there, what needs to happen to make that future a reality?
I think good evening or good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for still being around. I think three things. One, I mean, not one thing. One is determination that we have to do it, and it has to be done for the prosperity of the whole world. Second, collaboration. No one can get it alone. We need to cooperate, and we need to have partners. I think the third is that we have to use technologies that are in other sciences, not only mining, but other sciences, from medicine, from big data, to accelerate the way we do exploration, the way we do processing, and the way we do recycling.
Okay, that was really brief.
End of the day.
That's great, that's terrific. All right, Dr. Al-Shari, same question to you.
Yeah, of course. Let me just cover it from innovation perspective. I think the mining sector will require deep insight into innovation, and that's actually require new innovative solutions, technologies to tackle the challenges that's facing a mining sector across the value chain. And when I say these technologies and development of these technologies, innovation is driven by, I think, three trends: digitization, decarbonization, and sustainability. So once these technology, Internet of Things, remote sensing, autonomous drones, submarines, all these technologies actually, once it's adopted, that will serve and enhance the value chain of the mining, promote production, reduce cost, and enhance safety protocol.
Emily?
I think that intellectual capital is the most important element that we're missing in the energy transition right now. We need to gather every single smart person from the top of all of the industries, not just mining and metals, but cross-disciplinary, and bring them all together and focus on what needs to be done. And the second is really collaboration. We need to collaborate with other countries. We need to collaborate with scientists from different disciplines. Polymer scientists need to talk to battery scientists, and we need the opportunity and someone to facilitate it. And I feel in my short time in Saudi Arabia that the kingdom is so organized, so nurturing, and so serious that this is a place where change can happen.
Wow, okay, good one. I agree. Florence, you?
Yeah, I would definitely like to echo what everyone else has said, but definitely collaboration is definitely an important thing. Bringing people together at global platforms like this and bringing everyone along. So not just the intellectual people or the smart people who are forming policy, but people who will also be participating. So everyone in the community, so making sure that they're informed, I believe that's a really important piece, so then we can build that trust so we all do this together. So that's a very important thing.
Christine?
I'll choose three things. First of all, innovation, which has already been talked about. We need to invest in innovation. We need to accelerate the adoption of innovation. It's not just new technology, but technology is very important. But it's our processes, it's our strategies, it's our business model, it's how we engage with our workforce and people. Next, it's about inclusion. We need to make sure our industry is inclusive. We need to be closer to the communities which we work. We need to make sure that miners and suppliers are working very closely together to create a strong and vibrant ecosystem. And we need to ensure that we're welcoming everyone into our industry. And then finally, it's inspiration. We need to be inspired because, as everyone has said, we have a big task in front of us, and we're only going to do that with inspiration. And for that, we need strong and determined and courageous leadership, and we need a strong vision. And I think being here, that vision has certainly been demonstrated by the kingdom.
Chris?
It's always lovely to go after so many smart people, but I'll have a go. And I think to me that Winston Churchill said that for us to predict the future, we need to look to the past. And I think that if we'd been sitting on this stage a year ago and made the predictions, we'd have all been wrong. We would not have predicted a war in Europe. We wouldn't have predicted the price of money, the cost of money, the lack of investment that is going to happen, energy shock, energy supply. There are so many things that we would not have predicted that I think that for us to develop towards the future, I think we need to think about a couple of things. If I marry that with the huge mismatch between the media and the expectation that we somehow have this glide path towards renewable energy and a green transition in the future, that somehow it's magically going to happen. But as we've heard over the last couple of days, the supply simply isn't there. It's simply not possible without us doing something which is actually quite a long-term project. And so it's really concerned me, if you like, the perception from the world and the reality from the experts here. And then Thomas Edison said that vision without execution is illusion. We're kidding ourselves. And so therefore, I think there will be a move, and there should be a move, towards jurisdictions that provide stability. Stability politically, economically, a flow of capital, a structure where things can happen over a 20-year time frame. So I think that once people realize what our problem is, there's going to be a searching for jurisdictions like the Kingdom, where the provision to provide the need for resourcing tomorrow can be fulfilled.
Don?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this within the framework of mining and actually the supply chain for the energy transition, which of course is begun with digging out the minerals. And it's a daunting problem. And I just want to remind people what the problem is. I mean, what are we trying to push up against? And it's a changing global environment. We've got changes in the atmosphere with rising CO2 levels. We've got changes in the pH of the oceans. So I would put all of those under the umbrella of chemical injury. That's what we're trying to push back against, is to correct chemical injury. And to my reasoning, there's only one remedy for chemical injury. It's a chemical remedy. So we have to change their processes, our choices of materials, and all of the things that people have talked about here. And within the context of mining, you can't do everything all at once. I forgot.
Okay, Don, so if you can't do everything all at once, what are you going to do first?
That's it. We prioritize. So we go after the low-hanging fruit. We know where emissions come from in the mining operations with all those diesel-operated tools and so on. We can very simply electrify those. It's just, as other people have said on this panel, the commitment, the resources, the determination, we know where they are. And then downstream in the metallurgical operations, the conversion of ores into metal products, very pollution intensive. We know where the pollution comes from. We know where we have to make the remedies. Structure it and knock those problems off one by one. If we say we want to do everything all at once, I don't have the answer for that one. There's a saying about kinetics. Kinetics is the measure of the rate at which processes occur. And somebody once quipped, kinetics is nature's way of making sure everything doesn't happen all at once.
That's a whole new conversation. Okay, that's for next year's topic list. I like the sound of that already. What I find interesting about what you've all said is that it speaks very directly to one thing that I think is fundamental and key: leadership, right? And not just leadership in terms of being a visionary, but being courageous. I think, Emily, you used that word. In the room, I'm not going to take a poll because I'm a bit nervous about what the responses might be. But I have a feeling that if we ask a lot of leaders and say, are you courageous? Oh, yes, of course I'm courageous. Or, oh, yes, of course I'm courageous. Are you a visionary? Of course, I'm a leader, I'm a visionary. What we actually see, though, in the real world is that that's not necessarily the truth, right? Because we have many people who are in positions of influence and leadership who should be doing those things and necessarily aren't. So I'd like for us to talk a little bit, or start at the top and work our way down. If we say we want an environment that has visionary and courageous leaders, how do we create that in spaces where we recognize that is a real challenge? Excellency, can I ask you first?
Wow, that's a difficult one. Of course, courage and leadership are seen at time of need, when there is a major change or there is a major challenge that is in front of a situation or organization. And these are only in difficult times. In the normal days, the engine operates in change, in new lands, or there is change in the way the business goes then. And here where courage appears. Therefore, we are in a situation now that we require leadership. And a good example is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the same Saudi Arabia, the same resources, same people 10 years ago, 20 years ago. A leader came with a vision, and here we are. That is the greatest example of leadership, vision, and courage.
Emily, you brought up the topic of courage and the essential need for certain skills. We see them to an extent in many aspects in the mining sector, but we're also recognizing broadly the point that you made, that we have to ensure that the skills that we're developing and building now are actually future purposeful.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And I think, that requires a whole shift in our education system. For example, you cannot go to a university in the United States right now and learn how to make a battery. So we're starting a program in Boston to teach local people and start to train a local workforce of technicians. Is that something investors like, knowing that you're spending some of their money to build something like this? No, but you just say, this has to be done, and you have some courage, right? You have to empower people that work for you, and you have to turn them into leaders. And that's why I think one of the many reasons Professor Sadoway and his companies are so successful. He makes people courageous and leaders. But we need more of inspirational people in government, and we need more entrepreneurs that are not afraid. We need more investors that are okay. And these big companies, I'd like to see some courage and leadership from large mining companies, and like to see them make a change. We have Robert Friedland, who's very courageous and is committed to change, and I think that it would be nice to see a lot of the larger mining companies actually follow in his footsteps.
Another thing that came up in the brief round that we did was the question of hearing different voices in the room, diversity. Women in mining is certainly one thing that's key, and I'd like to take this diversity to several spaces. One, talk about the women in mining issue, but secondly, talk about broader diversity questions, hearing different people in the room, getting different perspectives, so that we try to avoid some of the mistakes that we've made in the past. So Florence, if I could begin with you, ensuring that we have more women access this industry in a meaningful way, how does that need to start happening?
Definitely with participation. So just for us being here today is a fantastic demonstration that we're part of the future. So the fact that we're sitting here on the panel, the fact that we've traveled around the world to be here at a global event, that's an amazing effort for us to show up and be here. Secondly, the things that we need to look at as well is, of course, education, but utilizing the skill that we already have in the workforce as well. So the industry is looking at automation. That's a risk to people who are already in industry. So they're already encouraged to continue their employment and their career. So we need to also ensure education is accessible to them, because they'll be your biggest talent pool that you can tap into to be part of your workforce.
Christine, you spoke a lot about this in your opening remarks, the diversity question. It can't just be, oh, we need to be seen to have women in the room, so let's get women in the room. It's about how do we ensure that it's not about the token of having women in the room, but making sure that women are actually participating in the process in real and meaningful ways, because we already know that they can, right?
Absolutely. I've just come actually from the Women in Mining panel, and it was so inspirational hearing everyone's stories. And I think what we need to do in mining is first of all, we need to make it easy for women to opt in. We need to make it easy for women to participate in mining by being flexible in what we offer, by ensuring that the responsibilities that women might have at home, whether it's elderly parents, whether it's with their children, that they are catered to, and we have to make sure that there's there's an expectation that they will be supported in what they do. But we talk about diversity, but it's really about inclusion. It's about empowering those women as well to make decisions, to have a voice in the workplace, and also to promote those women because of the skills they have. Women won't necessarily put up their hands for a promotion. And so you need to encourage women to take that next step, to be bold and to have confidence in themselves.
What I found quite interesting about this discussion around diversity is that for many, many years we've talked about hard skills and soft skills. And automatically women must have the soft skills because all the men have the hard skills. But what I found interesting during the COVID pandemic particularly, and certainly in my country, was when that happened, a lot of the soft skills became important because people within organizations were struggling emotionally as a result of COVID, what was happening in their personal lives, to them, to their families, etc. And the dynamic is beginning to shift around how we consider skills generally in the business space. So if I can come to you, Dr. Al-Shikhri, when we're looking at upskilling correctly across the board, what are the imperatives in that space? I think Christine touched on it a little bit, but I'd like you to elaborate a bit more.
You mean the skills, the skills needed for the mining?
Not just for mining, but for the companies that are going to be mining companies in the future. Not just engineers, not just tech specialists, but also some of those skills which historically have been considered softer, but have proved to be really important in the working environment.
Of course, I think through the education first and advanced training and to prepare the next generation actually of the technical leaders, women and men actually, to have all these skills, either technical or soft, skills. This is one way of how to prepare actually the leaders and enhance the environment in the company and of course promote the businesses in all across the mining sectors. So I would say that advanced training is very important, and also education will help a lot in this matter.
Don, while we're on the topic of education, you work in a space where your very job is to invent, to create, to think differently about the world that we live in. What is it that we need to start fostering in young people to ensure that we cultivate that curiosity, that willingness to create, which we sometimes can lose in the process of requiring people to think quite rigidly?
Well, it's exactly what you just pointed to. In the educational system, we have to have room for dreaming and for asking young people already to take what they've been taught, the mathematics, the physics, the chemistry, and to devise and design, to impress upon them that each and every one of them can be a designer, and get them to start to, it's not about inculcating. I don't see the educational model as the student comes to me as an empty vessel and I'm going to pour this magical fluid in and top it up. It's polar opposite. They come to me ready, and all I do is I give them the key that they can unlock themselves. And it's all about unlocking that human potential.
You've done many interesting things in many parts of the world, Chris. And I think identifying spaces where there is opportunity is also key in this process, right? It's not just about what we find under the ground or whether it's in Saudi Arabia, but it's thinking differently about the spaces we occupy and how opportunity may manifest. So in the context of that, how do you see us needing to look at the environment that we live in, where we're doing business, where we're exploring and want to, in a way that is encouraging us to think differently?
I think that the key to that, to me, has to start with education and investment from a very, very early age. That I still think that a career in mining to some people is seen as going down a Victorian coal mine and coming up dirty every night. And I think the technological overlay and the huge career opportunities, the chance for international travel, the money that's being invested, the way that you can have a really progressive career, I don't think has got through thoroughly. So to answer your question, the only way we can exploit that, and talking to a number of the very senior CEOs here, they're saying that the geologists that they're needing, the people they get needing in mines, they're having to bring people out of retirement for a 2-year contract because young people either haven't come into the industry fast enough or are still not being trained. And that, of course, is going to be a problem, I suspect, with the economic downturn that we're facing now, that the first thing that happens is the worst thing that happens. You cut your recruitment, you cut your training, you cut your budgets for actually bringing the lifeblood in an industry that has to go so dramatically. So I think the answer and the way out and the future is young people who are fully trained and educated and have a progressive career in a way that gives them satisfaction and makes them want to stick.
Speaking about environments in general, I'd like to narrow it down a little bit to environments in terms of the communities where mining is taking place. We obviously need to have different conversations with the communities because in so many instances, they're an afterthought. It's, oh, we want to do this, oh, and there are these people in this space, so let's quickly go talk to them and tell them amazing things we're coming to do in their space. What's been interesting for me, again, Excellency, is that in Saudi Arabia, that's been quite a deliberate thing that you've done. It wasn't, we want to explore, we want to do this, and then we've come up with the plan, oh yeah, let's go talk to the communities. I get the sense that there is a specific effort to try to engage from the outset. How have you created the strategy around ensuring success in doing that part of the puzzle?
Thank you, yes. Of course, we were lucky. We're starting where everybody have ended. So we're learning from all the successes the world has done in 800 or 1,000 years in mining, and of course the failures. So we started from there. I also wanted to appreciate the work that ICMM has done in this regard. They have built toolkits, social toolkits, and other community engagement toolkits that are built over years of experiences of large and majors. Those are the tools we used, and we improved them to fit Saudi Arabia. So we were lucky. We are working on North Campus. Another thing is that mining in Saudi Arabia is an economic play. You heard His Excellency, the Minister of Finance, says usually finance minister wanted more taxes or more income, but he was here in the morning and say for mining, anything received from mining will be put into mining, which is a mining fund. So being an economic play, the focus is how to develop. So if it's not good for the community, the country doesn't want it. And this is the rule. So we learned from others. We started where everybody has learned, and we building it to bring economic development to remote areas. The drive is very clear for us.
Florence, you work specifically on the ground within communities, not just in terms of women, but obviously a lot of these women are indigenous, so they come from indigenous communities. What is the conversation that is being had in that space around this question of doing things differently to ensure that communities are playing not only a different role, but that their ownership of the space is acknowledged and they are brought into the process of building successful mining businesses?
Yeah, and that's such a complex relationship, right? A complex understanding that we need to address many of those facets. But I think awareness of what we're actually all aiming for is something that we really need to understand firstly. So understanding what the value chain is in the first place. So if I speak to someone in the community, they don't necessarily understand who the end user is or how their product in the ground gets to what process it needs to go through to get to there. And so many of those components they don't understand. So education and awareness and access to the education is very important, because at least then they can make an informed decision to then think about how they want to participate, not only as a community, but also as employment and also as a business as well. So there's many facets that you can address, and then that then really gives you a nice story and a really nice business case to towards social performance and towards all of these other reports as well that you need to share with society. And to add on to the question that you asked earlier about education, thinking about how young people or people communicate in the first place. Now that they're very social on technology, so when you think about social media and things that aren't so traditional, the traditional platforms for education, how do we connect with them? So this platform being very vocal on LinkedIn and other professional platforms, those things help the narrative. So focusing on that as well is a great thing.
And briefly, before I have to start wrapping, models that work in terms of that engagement. Can you share one or two that we need to think more about as mining companies that may be working in our spaces where we exist?
Showing up to build trust is the most simplest thing you have to do. So you need to be visible in communities. You need to have those conversations face to face, because that builds trust and that builds agreements and that builds a very sustainable future. So that would be the one thing, if you could do that.
Okay, speaking of things that you can do, I'm going to ask you about homework that you're going to give yourself. And no, don't look so nervous. It's not that bad. If I could start with you, Don, and work my way back. When you leave here, Saudi Arabia, the one thing that you want to ensure you do when you get back home to play your part in delivering this future is going to be what?
I'm going to look more deeply into role that I can play with my knowledge of electrochemistry and accelerating change in the mining sector.
Great. Chris?
I think that the clear message that's coming out and the way that the Kingdom has provided a platform and thought leadership into how we all collectively have to collaborate and think through how we resource tomorrow.
Christine?
Well, we're already working on a program to continue the conversation that we're having here throughout the year, so we can connect this year with what we're going to be talking about next year. And that program will involve talking about what we've learned in the Kingdom. That program will talk about how to engage. That program will talk about collaboration, and that program will look at how we accelerate innovation related to the energy transition.
Florence?
I'll definitely be planning my trip back, but also, of course, with a lot more of my network members as well, because this is a big task and we need to do it together. So for me to bring more women with me, it will be a fantastic exchange of knowledge and a fantastic inspiration as well.
Emily?
I feel that when I'm going to go back, I'm going to spend more of an effort on connecting with other women in the space. I was very impressed with Saudi Arabia, who had a target of 35% women in the workforce by 2030 and now have 27%. And I think that engagement and networking of women will only help that grow more. And I've seen this change. If you guys can do this here in Saudi Arabia, we should be able to do it in the mining space overall.
Dr. Al-Shikhri?
I think technology developments to make sure that there is a always technical solution to sort out the challenges that face mining sector.
Excellency, I must say, I'm a bit nervous to ask you this question because I know your list of to-do is really already very long. So can you choose one on your list that you're going to share with us?
Because others need to leave after 1 hour. Huh? No, yes. One thing, I would sleep for 12 hours. That's
Yeah, we will need some of that.
I think I will take a time to digest what we have learned. Lots of learning, lots of news over 2 days, and I have learned from all the speakers that were in the stage and in other theaters. But I think I would take this opportunity also to thank our great speakers that made the Future Men of Forum a premier event. And I have a problem because they raised the bar.
Yeah, so what are you going to do next year?
So the thinking I'm going to do for the next year is how to do the next Future Mineral Forum better than this. So I will invite you all, please, to come and help me with that. And the other one is that future has to be we in the mining industry have to be more responsible, use more technology. We saw great young men and women that are very smart and they have the capacity to make this industry, the future of this industry, completely different from the past we have been, and that to deliver 500 folds or 5 folds more of minerals by only 1/5 of what we've been doing in terms of an impact. This is a major mandate, but I'm optimistic, and humanity will always find solution to do better when it is needed. So I'm sure we will do.
And I think I'd be speaking for everyone in the room to say that we're excited to seeing how you're going to deliver on that. I have every confidence that it's going to happen, and I think many of us want to come back next year anyway. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very
Please, a round of applause for my wonderful panel. Thank you so very much, Your
Thank you,
Excellency.
Tommy. You've done great.
Thank you so very much.
عليك. إن شاء الله حياك الله.
Thank you.